Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Homestand Show. I'm Albert Vartanian. We got a big show today. Jumping on, we're going to have Jelani Goodridge-Reid. He's going to hop in with me and Justin Pooni to talk about the Raptors. Homestand kicks off tonight against the Denver Nuggets. We have some interesting clips from Nick Nurse, by the way, on his bench and why the Raptors are going through some serious highs and lows. Also on the show, Avery, Perri of NorthStar Bets. He stops by. We talk Scottie Scheffler, the Valspar coming up, and some more March Madness picks as well. Bobby Conway, Robert Conway, joins the show off the top. He's the man to my left of Bet99. Justin Pooni, my co-host. Let's start off with some NFL news because there's a ton. This is the NFL block. Jimmy Garoppolo. Las Vegas have got their man, and it's not Aaron Rodgers, it's Jimmy Garoppolo. He signs a 3-year deal with Las Vegas, $72.5 million contract, $34 million guaranteed. In the office, there's someone in this office, I'm not going to name him, maybe when he comes on the show later, who said that the Raiders can win a Super Bowl with this guy. Do you agree?
No. Short answer, no. Long answer, I mean, look, they have a decent team, but you're not upgrading from Derek Carr with Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion. And that team, needed a miracle to get to the playoffs last year. Then this previous season, obviously nothing. So they ended up benching Carr. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a decent quarterback on a really good team like San Francisco, which is loaded with players, with Samuel, McCaffrey, and all that. But Jimmy Garoppolo, granted, he has Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs at running back, Waller at tight end. Those are good players, but are they as good as San Fran? No.
Look, it's a lateral move, like you said, with Jimmy Garoppolo. He signed a 3-year deal. It's a stopgap deal.
Lateral move, how so?
Like, Derek Carr is a little bit of a better quarterback, but it's not going to put you over the top.
So you don't think Jimmy's an improvement on Derek Carr?
No.
Oh.
I actually think it's a regression. I think Derek Carr is a better quarterback because at least he stays healthy.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that what the Raiders are going to do is they're probably going to draft a quarterback in the first round and have Jimmy G just kind of, hold fort till that young quarterback is ready. Again, they got really good pieces. Jimmy G can deliver the ball, distribute the ball. He knows the Josh McDaniels system, but they're not no Super Bowl, nothing like that. Maybe
stay healthy too.
Yeah,
and they play the toughest
big thing with
division in
Jimmy G.
football.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue with Jimmy G, right?
Yeah.
Really good quarterback, but can't stay healthy. We'll see what happens with Las Vegas. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. No one actually knows right now. Trey Wango reported yesterday that the deal was done. It's not done yet, but now we're hearing reports from Adam Schefter, not on Aaron Rodgers, but a former teammate, that the Jets are closing in on Alan Lazard, and Randall Cobb is on the radar. It seems like anybody who's ever been associated with Aaron Rodgers is now being associated with the Jets, and he's not even there yet.
Yeah, somewhere Brett Favre is looking as this guy's copying my script pretty much. Well, look,
Can you make sense of this all, please?
I don't understand. Like, does Aaron Rodgers want to play football? You went on that darkness retreat. You did all this stuff. You go on Pat McAfee show every week. You tease us. You play these mind games. You speak in these cryptic riddles. Bro, just say what you want to do. Do you want to play football next year? Yes or no? Do you want to be with the Green Bay Packers? Yes or no? It's clear the Packers don't want to be with Aaron Rodgers anymore.
No, they don't. And, he does need to make that decision. Like, he spent 4 days in the dark. What do you need, 5, 6, 7 days in the dark? I mean, I think he's cooked. He needs to figure it out and get out there and make a decision, because I don't understand why you're even thinking. I mean, look, I'm sure he's friends with Alan Lazard. I'm sure he's friends with Randall Cobb. Like to get your buddies paid. I'm totally down with that. But you have complained about the offensive weapons you've had around this team. They don't draft people in the first round. You have all this stuff. They lose Devontae Adams. And then you go to a team that has Garrett Wilson on. They got Breece Hall as a running back. They got all these options. And you want to bring back your old buddies. I like the idea of having friends around. Everyone does. But that's the whole point of getting away from Green Bay, is to get better offense.
The other thing I will add on to that is the reason why Aaron Rodgers wants these guys he's comfortable with, because he doesn't have to show up to OTAs or anything like that.
Yeah, it's true too. Yeah.
Should roll up in training camp and that's it. So
I know we're not privy to a lot of the information that happens behind the scenes, but if you're the Jets, this is just my opinion. I mean, you should be a little concerned that this isn't done yet. You don't have a quarterback, and you're relying on this guy behind me to say yes, and he hasn't done that yet. So when he does come, what's his commitment level at?
Well, I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, who's just a couple seasons away from being an MVP. I think you got to have the patience. I know what you're saying, whether or not he's committed, whether or not he's just trying to get the money. Is he trying to figure that part out? It's going to be a couple-year deal. But I think if you're the Jets, you have no choice. You have to be patient here. Unless you're going to figure out a way to get Lamar Jackson on your team, you're going to have to not settle for Aaron Rodgers. I shouldn't say it that way, but you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to settle for the patience of it anyway.
And you're going to have to fork out a big check for Aaron Rodgers too, because it's going to be about like $60 million. You're basically going to be paying like about $60 million bucks just for 1 year.
Yeah.
right?
And quarterbacks flying off the board. New York Jets, by the way, on Bet99, 14-1 to win the Super Bowl. I don't like that number.
Don't tell Matthew Barnaby that.
Even with
Yeah.
Rodgers, I don't like that number. You
No,
never know
yeah,
what's going to
away from
happen.
it.
That's right.
Quickly, there was a trade. Jalen Ramsey, quarterback from the Rams, goes to the Dolphins. Rams get a 2023 third rounder and tight end Hunter Long. They also signed Mike White from the Jets and picked up Tua's fifth-year option, which tells me Tua's the guy until he's not the guy.
Until this year, and then they'll move off.
Maybe
of
the
him.
judo classes are going to help.
Yeah, we'll see. Look, this was a pure salary dump by the Rams. The Rams are clearly going to go in a rebuild. They sold their souls for a Super Bowl ring. They got the Super Bowl ring, and
Worked
now
out.
they got to face the the harsh reality. They got to rebuild. Does Sean McVay really want to stick around for a rebuild? Well, they probably sent him a little bit more money his way. It's a good pickup for Miami. They still
Massive,
got,
right?
They got Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey, two of the best cornerbacks in the league. You got Canadian Javon Holland in the secondary. They got Bradley Chubb. They got a lot of good pieces on the Miami defense to go along with that explosive offense as well. Miami needs to be a playoff team this year. They need to be a playoff team.
I think if they do, real quick, I think if they want to do that, then White's probably not the answer. I don't think Tua needs to play this year just for his own health and safety. But they have a great team all around him. There's guys like Ramsey, Hopkins. Like there's these veterans of teams, like you say, just dumping that you can be around, you can get up, and you can get pieces. Leonard Fournette's available out there as well. So there's our spots there. But if you're Miami, I think you got to figure out the quarterback position.
Really quickly, if Tua somehow stays healthy, plays at his best, now with Ramsey and the rest of the pieces there at 26-1, are the Dolphins a true legit Super Bowl contender?
Better contender than the Jets, that's for sure.
Are they though with Rodgers and Allen and with Bills? I mean, it's a tough one. Of course, Bill Belichick. It's a tough division, man.
Yeah, it'll be a tough division. So much more going to happen this week. Free agency opened up in the NFL. We'll talk about that throughout the week. But coming up, it's time to talk about the Toronto Raptors with Jelani Goodridge-Reid. Welcome back to the Homestand Show. Thanks to Rob Conway of Bet99 for coming on, talking some NFL. Now joining us, Jelani Goodridge-Reid to talk some Raptors basketball. I kind of dogged on you a bit.
Yeah, I heard.
With the
Raiders talk, man.
Okay, I was joking.
I know
I
you
was
were joking. I know.
I love Jimmy G,
I had to put it out there, right?
I love
Jimmy G's your
G.
guy, though. What are you talking
He is
about?
Jimmy G cute.
You know what? I want to get your thoughts on this, but Justin and Rob, they really didn't rate Jimmy G.
Like the pickup?
Do you think he's an improvement on Derek Carr?
No.
Oh, okay, so you guys are on the
I
same
don't
boat.
think so.
I know
don't think
this guy's football
so. Yeah,
takes.
no, Derek Carr is a better quarterback. Jimmy G.
Okay,
yeah.
a healthy
He's
Jimmy
won
G.
games. He's won a lot of games, but look at the teams in San Francisco, right? So
Right.
I don't think it's that much of a move.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like it. Not football talk. Let's talk some NBA.
Yeah, let's do it.
The Toronto Raptors kick off a homestand tonight against the Denver Nuggets, and I'm looking at this line, and I don't like it. The Raps are laying 1. They're favored at home against the Denver Nuggets,
yeah.
and I know the Nuggets aren't great on the road, but the Nuggets are a much better team. This is a
best
team
team.
that's running away with the West.
Yeah, like that's what we talked about in Hoop Talks today.
Yeah.
How the hell are the Toronto Raptors?
What are we missing? What are we missing here?
I have
Please
no
tell me.
idea. I don't understand this, right?
Me neither.
The Raptors are coming off a road trip where you just finally admitted that they're mid.
Oh, mid-tours.
Mid-tours.
That's what they
Toronto
play.
Yeah.
Midters, right? How are they against the Nuggets? And
Right.
to them, for the Raptors to contain Nikola Jokic again or semi-contain him
Semi-contained.
in twice in a week, that's a tough ask, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, I will say this: Jamal Murray is questionable for tonight, which is huge. He torched the Raps, but Michael Porter Jr. also torched the Raps in that game as
Nah, I
well.
don't.
Everybody's torching the
and
Raps right now.
The referees are probably going to torch the Raps. Can I say this? I mean, I was thinking about it. You know, when Freddie came out and said all that stuff about the referees, I kind of backed him. Like, good on him for saying that.
Right.
But now thinking about it, and after that Laker game, Pascal and Fred, no free throws. You know, people say, well, Anthony Davis had no free throws in that game either. Whatever. I think that's going to come back to bite them in the ass big time because of when he said it. This is a stretch run to try and get to the play and try and get to the playoffs, which, based on what Masai did at the trade deadline, this is what they have to do. But now they're not getting no help from the NBA officials. We can't forget that the officials, that's an own separate team in the NBA, right? The brotherhood.
They're the most dominant team in the
And
NBA.
I really think that those comments are going to hurt the Raps down the stretch here.
I want to say this though, okay? Even though we've lost these games, they've been close for the most part, but it's not just because the refs.
No, not just
all right?
because
I
that.
want to point out the fact that these guys don't know how to finish games.
And you know what? Freddie said that too. He goes,
Yeah.
we didn't lose because of the refs. It's because of us.
Like
But-
I want the fans to know that too. I think the fans are looking at that Scott Foster incident
Absolutely,
in Denver and
yeah.
saying, "Oh, we lost because of that." No, we had multiple leads in the
low-hanging
fourth quarter.
fruit. Yeah.
Okay, in Denver, you should finish that game. Similarly to the LA games, right? We didn't show up against the Clippers, and then the Lakers, we had leads and we blew it. And let's face it, AD didn't show up, and we didn't find a way to win the game.
But
right?
listen,
So,
the last 2 to 3 minutes in the fourth quarter of any NBA game is crucial.
yeah.
And if the refs aren't with you and they're against you, you're not going to get the
That's gonna be
calls
a
that you
problem.
need
It's gonna be a
at those moments, right? I mean, Pascal's not getting to the free throw line.
But the other thing I'd say about that, right, and the lack of calls, if you're looking at the differences in calls or over the last few games, it's also because these guys, to me, when I'm watching, they're not aggressive.
No.
They don't look to get fouled. They're inside. They want to kick it out for a terrible look from downtown. All right, you have an opportunity, get past your first defender. You're driving. Why do I see multiple times? I see it like Pascal. It happens with him all the time. Actually, I see it with OG. I see it with Scottie. Sometimes they get past their first man. They'll stop randomly. Then they rely on that pivot foot. They look. There's more defenders on them. They scramble and then they find a guy on the outside, but it's not a good look. And let's face it, this is with like 2 seconds left in the shot clock in the 24. Okay, so they have to find a way to be aggressive inside. Go take it up, be strong. This is just what they teach you when you're in grade 3. All right, go strong, go up, look for those fouls. Right, I just don't think that when the Raptors are playing these teams that are just as physical, if not more physical, I don't know if they search for those fouls.
You said it perfectly. I feel like when the Raptors, especially in the fourth quarter, their offense just is discombobulated, disjointed. They forget how to play the game of offense, to play the game of basketball in certain aspects, right? But when you think about it, right, is that because they just don't have the guys that have the bag, the offensive bag that can create their own shot?
Well, we've been talking about this all season long on Hoops Talks, right? The Raptors, if you look across the Eastern Conference, we'll touch on it soon, right? You talk a lot about these teams with stars, right? That will get it done when it matters most in the fourth quarter. That will score 25 plus, 20 plus, whenever you need them to, right? The Raptors, it's like it's a pick and choose, really. I know Pascal's been balling this year. If you look over the course of the season, he's an all-star, things of that nature. But again, if I'm looking at Pascal Siakam as my all-star, right? I cannot have him have stretches like he's currently on right now where he's giving me 15, 17, 12. What is that? Right? You need more than that, especially if you're telling me that you're playing for something in Toronto, right? So, and the other guys, I'm looking at Fred VanVleet. He wants that fat deal. He wants 30 mil plus. 35, my bad. Really? What happened in Los Angeles? What happened in Los Angeles against the Lakers? You know what I mean? So 8 points, 10 assists. Thank you. That's great. That's nice. But I need the scoring to be there too, because let's say there are nights where Pascal doesn't show up. Who is that other reliable scorer? It's absent. And that's why I felt, personally, as a fan, you got to start from scratch, because I've seen this team over and over and over, right? And there's opportunity to get young talent in the door, possibly a scorer, a guy that I could trust in that spot as a young talented guy, with that bag, quote unquote bag. The Raptors don't have it. Gary Trent Jr. is a scorer type of guy. Like he could score, he could shoot, but he's inconsistent. And shooters get hot and cold.
And it's not just Gary, right? It's the entire bench that's pretty inconsistent. And here's what Nick Nurse had to say about his bench production this season.
It's always been a challenge, I think, to figure out exactly what we're doing. It's been different starting lineups and different rotations coming off and all those things, and that challenge continues to remain the same. And I've got to help them. I mean, listen, we need. I tell you this all the time. We need immediate energy from them, right? Like they got to go in there and get into the game quickly, and really from a defensive and rebounding standpoint, because there's been a lot of times when we've really got a great rhythm going at both ends, and even just one or two subs seems to change that pretty quickly. And that just shouldn't be the case if you're ready to go and you're defending and rebounding, right?
I mean, bench scoring is a big issue for the Toronto Raptors. If you look at the bottom 5 in terms of bench production this season in the NBA, they're third last, 27.6 points per game, and last in minutes per game. Obviously, we know that Nurse kind of runs his starters to the ground because of the inconsistency from the bench. But where does the issue lie with the bench not being as productive as they probably should be?
Well, if you compare, I touched on this a lot. If you compare the teams of the past, right, there's just more talent on the bench
mob
right?
days,
the bench mob, a lot more talent that I saw here. It's just a lack of that, right? You got to trust a guy like Boucher. He could get high.
But so did But then you can see, Gary drop 30.
That's the thing. So me and Justin, we had this talk on Hoop Talks about who should be that guy off the bench, right? Because we brought in Pirtle, so who's gonna go to the bench? I feel like Gary Trent Jr. should be that sixth man, right? Because he can give you that boost, right? He can be a willing scorer and a guy that can get you going. Nick Nurse just pointed it out. We need someone to get us going. But again, with the inconsistency at times with his scoring and with his shooting, if you don't have Gary showing up, then it's a huge problem. Like who are you gonna rely on? Who are you gonna look to, right? Precious, again,
Very raw play, super
good,
raw.
super raw, right?
Yeah.
And Boucher, again, he's a nice piece, but you can't rely on him to be your number one in terms of the back of that rotation. So I just find that
They need better players, man. It's simple as that. They
the
just need
talent,
better
it's
players.
the lack thereof. It's the lack of talent that is here in Toronto. And if you're looking at the better teams, the teams that we're looking up, in those standings right now in the East, they have better benches. They're deeper.
Yeah.
This team is more so like an 8-man type of team.
You can't win like that.
8-man rotation.
No, you can't.
Unless
You
you
can't
got
win-
like Steph Curry and superstars.
And I get it. I get it. The playoffs are rolling
Not every
around.
team can have that, though.
No.
No, yeah. Of
That's
course.
why the Raptors have to develop a bench where they can run 10 guys
Well,
deep.
look, I mean,
Yeah.
this decision by Masai to become a buyer at the deadline could come back to bite them. Like, we know what's going to happen. Even if they do get into the play-in, they're not going to go far. But it's what happens in the summer now with a lot of these big-time decisions that need to be made.
It's true, but just touching on your point, I think, it matters a lot if you're playing for that play. If you're playing for a playoff spot, you're gonna need your bench to show up anyway. Right. And we've been talking about this year after year. Since that bench mob, how is this bench gonna look? And this season it's been pretty poor. It's been pretty poor.
Yeah.
Let's just face it, right? So they're gonna need these guys to step up. You're looking at guys that might want more minutes, right? The Banton, Doughton, all those guys. I don't know. I just don't see it.
I mean, Jelani, I could talk basketball with you all day. We got to do this again soon. We're going to bring on talk some Raptors. Okay, coming up, Avery Perri of NorthStar Bets. He stops by. We're going to talk about the Valspar coming up and Scottie Scheffler. Maybe some odds you need to look at heading into the Masters. All right, welcome back to the Homestand Show. Albert Vartanian, Justin Pooni. Joining us now is Avery Perri of NorthStar Bets. Avery, lots to talk about, especially in the golf world. Scottie Scheffler putting on one hell of a performance this past weekend at the Players. I mean, what he did in that last round shows you why he's the number one golfer in the world. You wrote a piece on golf betting trends and kind of what to look out for, specifically on Scottie Scheffler. How is he getting it done? I mean, 6 wins in 13 months.
I mean, it's absolutely crazy what he's doing. To think about 14 months ago, he had 0 wins, and now he's a 6-time winner. And he only wins big events, too, at the Masters, the Arnold Palmer. He's won in Phoenix twice, and now the Players with a $4.5 million purse. And it really just comes down to how steady he is. He never looks like he's freaking out. He never gets nervous under pressure, and he just doesn't make bogeys, and it's that simple. You saw Minwoo Lee making a triple on, I believe, the 7th hole. And then his tournament just starts to unravel after that. But Scheffler is very, very steady. He only made 5 bogeys all week long. And if you're just putting the ball in a hole at that rate, you're going to win a lot of tournaments. And credit to Ted Scott, his caddy, because this success sort of correlates with when he came on the bag. And you can really see Scottie's demeanor is so calm and cool and collected. And that just helps him win. He's a killer out there.
Yeah, I think that's what separates him from the rest of the pack is how cool and calm he is, especially when he's under pressure. It's not easy being in the lead with having these guys behind you chasing him, right? You got to close the gap somehow. And then you have to, at least at the Players at TPC, you got to face 17, and he did it so well.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You look at him, he's the ability to play well in those big tournaments like you mentioned, Avery. He only wins big tournaments, and that he knows how to play well under pressure. And I think that's a thing a lot of golfers fall under, right? When they get that in the lead, Sunday, whatever happens. I did want to ask you about Max Homa, though. He's been playing a lot of good golf right now. What do you see in his game and, looking the rest of the outlook for 2023 for him?
Well, Max, speaking of guys that were breathing down Scottie's neck, he made a big push on Sunday. He just got in on the cut line and then had an unbelievable weekend to make himself a bunch of money and finish inside the top 10. And, for a moment there, I was like, okay, if Scottie crumbles, maybe Max can come and steal this from him. Wasn't meant to be, but it just goes to show how consistent Homa's been all season. He's just putting in good performance after good performance. He was runner-up to John Rahm at the Genesis Invitational. And a lot of that has to do with his ball striking. He is such a good iron player. Long irons, short irons, wedges. He's just super consistent. He hits lots of greens. And he's starting to get that sort of killer mindset where he's draining putts. He's walking them in. He's fist pumping. he has a feeling that he belongs with the big dogs, and it's Scheffler, Rahm, and Rory are the big three right now that everyone is saying, oh, how many majors are they going to win? But Homa's a guy, when major season rolls around, keep a lookout for him, because you're going to find him at good odds, probably around 20, 25 to 1 at some events, and he can make a lot of noise. He's a really good player.
Yeah,
also a really
I
good
was
Twitter
big on
guy, too.
Homa. I bet Homa to win the Players,
Yeah.
and then on 16 he kind of slipped up, hitting into the
Yeah, I
green
bet him
bunker.
too. I bet him too. It was a tough scene, but
Yeah, there was still behind him. Scheffler still had a lot of golf to play, so I'm like, Homa has to go in with a couple of birdies. It just didn't happen. Looking ahead to next month, the Masters. Right now, you can get Scheffler plus 750 on NorthStar bets to win the Masters. He's one of the guys I definitely have my eye on. You mentioned a couple more: John Rahm, McIlroy, obviously Homa. Is there anyone else that you like that you think can put on that green jacket in April?
It's hard to overlook Scheffler to repeat just the way he's playing, but at 750, that's a number I don't really want to get into. One
short?
guy, PGA Tour wouldn't like this. Cameron Smith went to Live Golf.
Yeah.
Won the Open Championship, won the Players last year. I don't think they mentioned his name once on the broadcast the entire time. I mean, he's unbelievable. If we're talking ball strikers, he can get really hot, but his putting is what separates him from everyone else. He's a world-class iron player, but he can also just roll putts. And you saw when he made 5 straight birdies at St. Andrews to sort of rip the claret jug out of Rory's hand. He's one of a kind. And, there are concerns, like, is the level of play as high as it's been on the PGA Tour on Live? He won one of the Live events, so we'll see how he's keeping form. I feel like this is going to be a big indicator of how the Live guys will perform at majors moving forward. But I'm definitely going to give Cameron Smith a look at Augusta. He's played there so well before. He's had a runner-up. He was in the final group with Scottie last year. He's a horse for the course. And I think he and that mullet are going to be making noise come Sunday.
Now, of course, we're talking about Augusta. We got to talk about Tiger Woods. Plus 5,000 right now on NSB. Tiger got a chance? I mean, I think if Tiger Woods plays at Augusta, he has a chance. But does he legitimately have a chance to contend at Augusta?
If there were any course in the world where it were to happen, it would be at Augusta. I mean, we saw in 2019, we said the guy had no chance. And I don't know how he did it, but he did it. He won. I'd say no. I mean, just like what's happened in the last year, it's sort of he's not there anymore, but I could see him making a push. I could see him finishing inside the top 20 or 30. He just knows the place so well. He's just so strategic out there, where to leave the ball, how the greens break. So I could see him, maybe being on the leaderboard, but not being in actual contention. But betting him to make the cut, that's definitely something I'm going to look at.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he makes the cut. It's hard not to play multiple events leading into a major, especially something like the Masters at Augusta. And he said, listen, I'm probably only going to play the majors. But what I do want to see, how about some live golfers with Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods,
Phil and
playing
Tiger
on a Friday or Saturday.
Yeah,
right?
I'd love to see that.
Who knows if that will happen this week? You got the Valspar, not exactly the Masters, but it's an interesting tournament. Over the last 5 years, you had a repeat from Sam Burns in 22-21, a repeat from Casey in 1918, and then some Canadian action in 2017 with Adam Hadwin. Do you expect another repeat by Sam Burns?
I don't. I just think he's been a bit too inconsistent lately. He had a really brutal tournament at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. I think he missed the cut by about 6 or 7 strokes, and then he sort of was just there at the Players. He wasn't making much noise. So his form's not there this weekend. I mean, if there were any course for him to do it on, he's won here 2 years in a row. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened, but I'm definitely not looking towards him as an outright bet. But speaking of Adam Hadwin, the Canadian who won in 2017, I definitely got my eyes on him. He's been playing so well right now. He has 2 additional top 10, 12 finishes since he won in 2017. He just finished 13th at the Players. He's a horse for the course, and you can get him at 22-1 on NorthStar bets. And I'm also going to be betting him to finish in the top 20 at plus 150. I think he'll be on the leaderboard. He'll be in contention. It's just a matter of if he can hold the big dogs off at the top of the leaderboard.
We're speaking with Avery Perri of NorthStar Bets. Avery, currently, just 9 of the world's top 50 golfers are going to be at this tournament, the Valspar at Copperhead in Florida. Does that make this a tournament where, targeting maybe a long shot or an underdog here makes more sense because the field isn't that strong?
That could definitely make sense. I mean, you also could view it from a point like Justin Thomas needs a win. He hasn't won in a while, so maybe he goes out here and tries to step on everyone's throat and, I'm not looking at him. I think he's plus 1,000 to win this event. He finished second here a couple of years ago. But, some long shots could definitely make noise this week. Another two guys I'm looking at are Wyndham Clark at 33-1. Not exactly a super long shot. You saw Kurt Kitayama won at 200-1 a couple of weeks ago. That's a long shot. Like Wyndham Clark's right around the middle of the board. But he's made 10 straight cuts. He finished 10th in Phoenix. He's a great ball striker. This is an iron player's course, and he's been like right at the top of the game recently with the way he's hitting his irons. So I'm looking at him at 33-1. And then also Keegan Bradley at 20-1. He was a runner-up here in 2021. He has 3 top 20s in his last 5 starts. And he's posted positive strokes gained approach in each of his last 5 events. And that's what you want, a hot iron player running into a course where you need to hit good iron shots. So those are the 3 guys I'm looking at.
So Avery, again, it's March Madness time. Everybody's scrambling, filling out their brackets. I think I've already made like 5 or 6.
I haven't even done
They're
one.
probably all going to get busted in the first day. Do you got any tips for the people out there on how to create the best bracket?
I think you got to want your mix of chalky picks and then upsets. Each of the last 5 tournaments has been won by a 1 seed. Since 1985, 90% of the tournaments have been won by a 1, 2, or 3 seed. But, where's the fun in that? You got to take some upsets in the earlier rounds. The cream eventually rises to the top. But, in the earlier rounds, it's upset city. I think in the last 10 tournaments, the 11 seed has won more than 50% of the time. I think they're 21-20 in the last 10 tournaments. So, if you're looking at an 11 seed to pull off an upset, that makes a lot of sense. Of course, the 12-5 seed is always big for upset potential. And, I'm going to put my stake in the ground here. I think Purdue is out in the second round.
Wow.
I'm not feeling Zach Edey. I'm not feeling Purdue.
National Player of the Year, Canadian?
I know. I hate to say it, but they've kind of capitulated in March before, and I just don't think they're going to make it that far this year. Memphis has such a good team, coached by Penny Hardaway, and I think they're going to pull off a big upset in the second round.
Well, yeah, to build on that Memphis point, I have Memphis making the Elite 8 because I think Penny's a great coach. Who do you have winning the tournament, and what's your Final Four looking like?
My Final Four as of right now, just give me 1 second. I got Alabama playing Houston in the final. And then I got, sorry for the delay here, guys. I just made it not too long ago. And then I got
I haven't even made it.
Yeah, exactly.
I got Tennessee, Gonzaga, Alabama, and Houston. So it's a pretty
Gonzaga finally shaking the March jitters, I guess. Okay.
I think this is a good spot for Gonzaga because, they're always so stacked. They were always the favorite #1 team in the country. And now it's like, it's kind of quiet around Gonzaga. Like Mark Few's had teams that are so stacked and have so much, pressure on their shoulders. And now this feels like a year where they could like fly under the radar a little bit and just beat up on teams and go on a sneaky run.
Yeah, my move with the NCAA is shoot in the dark. I have no idea what I'm doing. I understand some of the storylines, but I'm looking at Alabama #1, and the only thing that I'm really seeing a lot of, they're a very good team, but there's some drama behind the scenes.
There's a lot of drama.
Right? Could that hurt them making a push to the NCAA final?
Yeah, but that team is so good. Like Brandon Miller's been involved in a whole lot of stuff off the court, but on the court, he's a top pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah. All right, that's been Avery Perri of NorthStar Bets. Avery, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk some more sports. Obviously, this time the Toronto Maple Leafs dropped a stinker against the Buffalo Sabres. Celine Trimarchi will jump in and join us to break down that game. All right, welcome back to the home show. Thanks, Avery Perri of NorthStar Bets, for stopping by, giving us some golf picks. Time to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, a good performance in the first period that led to a 4-3 loss to the hands of the Buffalo Sabres. Not the greatest game by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And here's what Sheldon Keefe had to say after the game.
And maybe you don't have your best, so you've got to play with intelligence. You got to play very smart, manage the game. We're up 2-0 with 10 minutes left in the second period on home ice. I got to win that game every time.
You got to win that game every time. Joining us now from Homestand is Celine Trimarchi to talk Leafs. Justin Pooni, my co-host, across from me. Thoughts on that game? It was a really good first period. They looked really dominant, and then the drop-off came.
Honestly, I don't even know what to say about the Toronto Maple Leafs anymore. This is something that we see all the time, especially when it comes to teams like Buffalo or even Arizona or Montreal. They just get
It's
too
a trend.
complacent. It is a trend. They just get too complacent once they have that lead, and they just give up and they stop trying. And you should not stop trying. Like, I understand, okay, it's Buffalo, you think you have it in the bag, but they came back. Okay, and they are also the third highest third period scoring team. So that alone right there, you should know you can't give up against a team like this. And they have Tage Thompson on the ice too. Like, you got to block him defensively too. You can't have so much open ice, and that's what they were doing, and they really just lacked all of their drive. They had absolutely no drive when it came to the second period, and then the third period was just a blowout as well. And that's something that can happen, especially going into the playoffs, especially against the Tampa Bay Lightning, because that's what it looks like right now. They're going to take advantage of that if they see our weakness right now.
You know what the problem is? As good as this team has been this season, it's performances like that really concern me. Not being able to turn a good performance from the night before, a couple nights before, into a good one against, I'm not calling Buffalo a bad team, but not at the caliber of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You think about it, right? Like, the Leafs have nothing really to play for anymore, right?
What
Like,
do you mean they have nothing to play for?
they're pretty much locked into they're never going to play Tampa Bay in the first round.
They're going to play Tampa Bay. They're still playing for home ice. They've built somewhat of a gap. But from now until the end of the season, it also is important to put in these good performances, considering Keefe is still juggling lines, 11 forwards, 7D.
I think also
These guys gotta
Ryan
perform.
O'Reilly fact, now that he's going to be out, how is he going to integrate back in the lineup when he comes back?
No,
in?
absolutely.
But when I look at last night, look, the Sabres are still fighting for their playoff lives. They're slim playoff chances.
They're a good team.
Very slim.
They were they were in a playoff position at one point this year too, and they got some good pieces. But the Leafs, we talked about with the Raptors too, they just got to figure out a way to have that killer instinct and close out games. And I've seen that happen this year. That game against Edmonton on Saturday, right?
That was a good
Very
game.
impressive. They showed that killer instinct, that killer desire to close the game out.
Yeah.
And you
I
would
don't know
think-
what happened last night, but it might just be one of those games.
You would think that the game against Edmonton too would have been a lot tighter, given the fact that McDavid was on the ice, and that's always a showdown when it comes to Matthews and McDavid. But all the big guys stepped up, and that's what we needed to see last night. But they just did not step up, especially in the third period.
Yeah, Marner, Willie, and Matthews, I think, had pretty good games last night. But just going back to the Leafs not, having a good performance after putting one on, they beat Edmonton. They looked excellent, right? Then they lose to Buffalo. You can go back even to when they smashed Seattle 5-1, go into Edmonton, they lose. Difficult game. But look at the losses. Chicago, Columbus, Arizona,
It's a trend.
Montreal.
Where's the
And these
Vancouver?
are off
They
of-
lost to Vancouver.
Vancouver. But these are off of good performances. They can't translate that into wins. And it goes back to the playoffs. In that series against Tampa Bay last season, it was win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. They couldn't close it out. They had a chance to close it out, but they couldn't do it. This is why it concerns me. And I get what you're saying, that maybe they have quote-unquote nothing to play for, but it's just showing me a trend that dates back a couple seasons ago.
I don't know.
This just makes everyone worrisome when it comes to playoffs. This is why we say it every year. This is going to be our year. But then when it comes to the playoffs, we all panic because we see the trend that happens with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that just can't happen anymore. It's getting tiring, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that where I'm at with this team is, I think where most people now are at with the team, the regular season does not matter. The regular season to me with the Toronto Maple Leafs is irrelevant, because I know they're going to be in a position where they're going to be a top seed in their division. They're going to be one of the teams that's going to be a contender. The regular season to me doesn't matter. How are they going to respond in game 1 when Tampa Bay punches them in the mouth? How are they going to respond to that? How are they going to respond in game 5 when they're down 3-2 in the third period? Can they make that comeback? That to me is what's going to define the Toronto Maple Leafs. Right now, look, you lost the game to Buffalo. You blew a third period lead. Oh, sorry, you let in 3 goals in the third period. Sheldon Keefe said you didn't play smart hockey. Well, it's one game, I think. The goaltending, though, that to me is the biggest worry with Matt Murray.
There's a lot of issues, and we'll get to the goaltending, but I think what I'm seeing here, and a lot of people are seeing, there are some holes on this Leaf team. And I think one of them is in defense, and it's a big one. It's a $7 million one in Morgan Rielly. I mean, they're going with 11 forwards and 7D. Luke Shen expected to come back soon. I think he flew out to meet up with the team. Someone's going to have to drop. I know it won't be Morgan Rielly because of the price tag, and I can't even imagine what would happen in the city and in media if Morgan Rielly was a healthy scratch. But Celine, based on what you've seen, we just talked about before we came on air, he's probably, in terms of a guy who's on the precipice of being scratched, it's Morgan Rielly.
You know what? I had this thought last night because when it was 6-on-5 at the end, there was maybe 30 seconds left. Morgan Rielly was on the ice. And Morgan Rielly he's slow. Like, I'm thinking, why would they put a guy like Morgan Rielly up on the ice, especially when he has to skate back and get the puck? He just stopped trying. He just kind of gave up. And I'm like, you can't have a guy on the ice like this. Not at all. And especially with Rielly, he's been fairly like inconsistent and not a good defender all year round.
Especially since he came back from injury, right?
Yes, like he just hasn't been. And he's posted like 0 goals too. Now I think it's 3 or 4 now, but he had 0 for like a period of time.
Yeah.
And Rielly is an offensive defenseman, but like, I think it's time, and he's getting paid way too much.
7.5
Way too
AAV, a lot of sheets.
Are you kidding me? That's too much money.
Well,
no, I think
they need to. They had to pay him that because they were gonna lose him in free agency, and then what are you gonna do, right? Look, Morgan Rielly again. He was injured too. He missed a chunk of time with injury too, and that throws the flow of game off. Now look again, he looks slower. Right, I think that's a very evident that, and Morgan Rielly's game was predicated on speed and skating the puck. That's what his strong suit was: taking the puck up, being that guy that can take the puck from his end, carry it down to the offensive zone, and set up there and set it up himself. He can't do that anymore, right? And the fact of the matter is this: you're stuck with that contract now. He's got a full no move clause. You're stuck with that deal for a while.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how do they reshape this defense core, because I still have questions about the defense going to the playoffs as well. And Morgan Rielly, look, I don't think he's going to be that guy who's going to put up 40, near 50 points every year anymore. But can he be a 35-point guy? He's going to have to evolve his game to become more of a defensive defenseman. Can he do that?
Yep.
That's going to be the question. Can he become a shutdown guy and really forget about the offensive side of the puck, but really focus on, can I shut down opposing team's best players? Can he do that?
Yeah.
Because he cannot keep up with the likes of the speedy forwards in the NHL.
I'm 100% with you. I'm not even worried about the offensive side of the game. Probably would be if the Leafs didn't have the scores that they do. But defensively, he's an issue. I mean, he made one good play on the Nylander goal to keep the puck in, or at least getting past him into the empty net. But before that, it was giveaways. It's puck watching. It's stuff that a guy who's getting paid the way he's paid and the caliber of his player, him at his peak, he's an excellent player. He's just not that guy right now. You mentioned the goaltending. Matt Murray got to start last night again. 4 goals. Led in once again, 5 straight games of that happening. Here's Sheldon Keefe on his goaltender's performance.
He's been great. I know the numbers look terrible, but again here tonight, I thought he was really good. I mean, there's 4 tap-ins. I mean, they're what are they, 3 feet or less in front of the crease. I thought he made some good saves. He was really solid in the first half of the second period. You know, when we were reeling a little bit, he was really solid. Huge breakaway save in the third period. So again, I've said this about Samsonov too. You know, previously at times, sometimes the numbers don't look great because we don't give up a lot of shots. The quality chances today were just, you can't give those. We can't give those type of looks up.
Let's hear it, Justin. Let's hear it. I know you're not a Matt Murray fan.
Sheldon Keefe is
I don't think he's a Leaf fan in general.
No, Sheldon Keefe is a really nice coach. He's a player's coach, defending his goalies.
What do you want him to say?
What else can he say? But look, Matt Murray has stunk the last little while.
You know what?
Stunk.
I don't want to cut you out, but I don't think he was terrible last night.
It was terrible.
The defensive front
some of the goals against Edmonton too.
Agreed with
I
Albert.
That McDavid goal.
He doesn't look sharp.
McDavid goal should not have gone, and that was a lousy goal. He did not show up in Vancouver. I was very happy to see that. Boston, they didn't play well. He didn't play well against Boston as well. Florida, the overtime loss. Look, it's Samsonov's job come the playoffs, but if he falters, do the guys have confidence in Matt Murray back there? Because if you have to throw him in the fire, will the Leafs players in front of him, do they have the confidence that, hey, I could take that pinch, I can take that extra risk because I know I have a guy that can make the save at the other end? I don't think they have that in Matt Murray.
He made a big save on Tage Thompson on a breakaway. He has that in him. I think this is pure speculation and opinion, but I really believe that this organization, whether it be Shanahan or Dubas or even Keefe, I think they want Matt Murray to be the number 1 guy.
Because he's a Sioux Greyhound?
They're trying to get him there because he's got the cups, right? And that's really important. That's really important. And Samsonov doesn't have that experience, even though Samsonov's been good. Like, look at his last 11 starts here. 5-5, 3.42 goals against. He's still making saves, though, but it's not great performances. And Celine, I personally think the number 1 guy should be Samsonov. I know a lot of people do think that. Do you think come playoff time that'll be the case?
Regular season Samsonov, I would totally take and put him into the postseason. But Matt Murray postseason is just so much better than Samsonov, and they know they can depend on Murray because he shows up when it comes to the postseason. But I'm so torn. Honestly, I'm really torn because Samsonov has made amazing saves. He's been like our backbone for a bunch of games. He really has. But with Matt Murray, I feel like there's more confidence in there because he's gone into these big games. He can handle these. When Samsonov was put in that position, he couldn't handle them with Washington. So I feel like they're just going to really rely on Murray. I really truly believe that. And we also saw too, a couple years ago when Montreal obviously made it to the postseason, Price was not putting up good numbers at all heading into that.
Right.
But that's Carey Price, though.
Fair enough. I understand.
I get what
I'm
you're
not
saying.
comparing Murray and Price, okay? And I'm not doing that. But I'm just saying he did not have a. Why are you looking at me like that, Justin?
Because you said you compared.
I'm
Carey
not
Price
comparing.
to Matt
I said,
Murray.
okay, sweetheart. No. I'm not comparing Matt Murray and
okay.
Price in that aspect. I'm just saying Price had crappy numbers heading
I
into the
agree.
post. Murray has crappy numbers heading to the post. But postseason is a different breed.
Yeah.
It's just totally different.
That they're hoping that Murray finds it. And listen, if he finds
Every
it,
series
even
they
something
go in,
I
though,
know, but listen,
they're gonna have
right?
the worst goalie.
Well, it's been like that for a long time. But if he gets anywhere near what his peak was in the playoffs, that's a better goalie than Samsonov. I will say that. I want to pose one question to you. With so much chopping and changing in the lineup, especially on defense, like that has to affect the goalies. That has to affect them, right? Because you don't know what's going to be in front of you. It's changing. Partnerships are changing. The chemistry is kind of off. I know I'm trying to make excuses
You're
here,
trying to pull excuses.
but I'm trying to figure out what the best plan is for this guy.
He should still be coming into each game A1. Does not care. Like he should not care who's
I agree
in
with
front
you
of
on
him.
that, yeah.
He should be in his crease, and that's about it. Like worry about the pucks coming at you. Don't worry about who's in front of you. Just keep your eyes focused on that puck.
Matthews, Marner, and Nylander combined for 6 points. Those three were really good. Tavares, not so much in terms of the core four. But with Matthews, the big question, at least the one that I was posing, was this guy needs to be ready for the playoffs, but it doesn't look like he is. How important will he be if he's not at his best? But it looks like he's kind of getting back there. Justin.
He's getting back there now. He's playing a lot better of late. He's scoring, which everybody was worried what happened?
Yeah, really aggressive too.
He's being aggressive. He's scoring. You saw him get into it with McDavid. Look, Matthews will be fine, right? Mitch Marner has been the MVP of this team all year. We know what he's going to happen. It's can William Nylander show up in the playoffs? Will Austin Matthews show up in the playoffs? That's the biggest thing.
I think William Nylander can totally show up in the playoffs, but on ice, like stat-wise, he can put up numbers.
Hollow stats.
But it's his mentality that worries me when it comes to the playoffs, because I remember last year,
He was one of their best players last year.
but it's his mentality sometimes when it comes to like him skating down when we're down in a game. He just gives up. He's a player that I've just noticed giving up, especially during the series with Tampa Bay. And there was a meme going around too. I can't remember if it was like game 5 or not, but yeah, no, we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, the Leafs, they'll be back in action later on this week. Coming up next, Mikey Singh joins us for some TFC breaking news. What's going on with Lorenzo Insigne? All right, welcome back to the Homestand Show. Thanks to Celine Trimarchi for coming on and talking about the Leafs. We have some breaking news in terms of what's going on at Toronto FC with Lorenzo Insigne. Michael Singh, he tweets that he's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. Not Michael Singh. Lorenzo Insigne is going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. The club confirms, and joining us now is Michael Singh of Room 442. You were just at Toronto FC training. You got this news. What's going on?
Yeah, Lorenzo Insigne, like I tweeted out, will miss the next 3 to 4 matches. It sounds like he re-aggravated his groin injury there. Well, he was on track, I think, last week to actually play in Saturday's home opener. The club had him training Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading up to that home opener. You're not doing that if it doesn't sound like he's on track to play. And they had originally done a scan on him for his groin. They figured out it was a very minor strain. But it seems like somewhere between after Bob Bradley spoke to media on Friday around 1 p.m. or so, he went in to check on Lorenzo Insigne. And at that point, he probably got an update that Lorenzo Insigne once again felt something, which is why he was held out of Saturday's home opener. After the game, Bob Bradley says, potentially we're going to have to do a second scan on Insigne because the first scan was very minor, but he's still feeling something. So maybe there is something that they're missing. So they went and got a second scan done over the weekend. And what we learned is that
he re-aggravated that groin injury. So he'll be sidelined for the next 3 to 4 matches.
Yeah, TFC fans, I'm seeing on Twitter,
Yeah,
they're concerned, they're frustrated in the player. They're trying, why is this happening to our players? Why are these injuries coming, especially with a main guy like Lorenzo Insigne? Then you had the Bernadeschi comments come out, kind of, I don't know if he was directing that at the coaches or certain players or whoever he was, but
Yeah.
it seems like there's a bit of a dark cloud over TFC right now.
Yeah, not the start that the club would have wanted,
No.
right? Everything seems to be going wrong for this team at this point. And it's funny, like it's 2 draws from their first 3 matches. Obviously, it's not 3 points, but it's not like they're getting blown off the park just yet. And, everything seems a little bit worse than it is just because of what happened last season. And then with Lorenzo Insigne going down, we've said this so many times. If he's not healthy for this TFC team, things are going to be really troublesome and really worrisome for this side.
13 appearances he only has so far with the club. There's definitely a cause for concern amongst TFC fans. After they invested all that money, right? Only
Yeah.
13
Expensive
appearances.
player.
Yeah, you don't want to think that you're paying all this money for a player and he's not going to show up the way you want him to show up for Toronto FC. Well, thank you so much for coming in. This guy's really happy because he's a Whitecaps fan, which is unfortunate. But that's the end of the show. Thanks for everybody for coming on. Avery, Perri, Michael, Singh, Celine Trimarchi, and Jelani Goodridge-Reid, Bobby Conway as well from Bet99. We'll be back tomorrow on the Homestand Show.